In 1970, Creedence Clearwater Revival was unstoppable. 14 consecutive top 10 hits, global superstardom, everything they'd ever dreamed of. But behind the scenes, 4 childhood friends were tearing each other apart. Then, John Fogerty wrote something that would predict their collapse weeks before it happened. The world heard an anti-war anthem about Vietnam. They were completely wrong. Hidden beneath a simple melody was actually a heartbroken farewell. This is the song that destroyed CCR, but made them legends. Our story begins not in the smoky clubs of the late 60s, but in the halls of Portola Junior High School in El Cerrito, California, in 1959. 3 friends, John Fogerty, Doug Clifford, and Stu Cook, formed an instrumental trio they called the Blue Velvets. They were just kids with big dreams, playing what John would later describe as jukebox standards at school dances and local venues. Soon, John's older brother Tom joined the group. Tom was the original frontman, the singer who commanded the stage, while John played guitar in the background. As Tom himself would later admit with characteristic honesty, "I could sing, but John had a sound." It was a simple statement that would prove prophetic, foreshadowing the dynamic that would both create their legend and ultimately destroy them. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. For years, these 4 friends toiled in obscurity. In 1964, they signed with Fantasy Records, a small independent jazz label that had found success with Vince Guaraldi's Cast Your Fate to the Wind. But the label's co-owner, Max Weiss, had his own vision for the band. He renamed them the Golliwogs, a name the band members found deeply distasteful, but endured as they continued their struggle for recognition. During these Golliwogs years, something crucial was happening with the band's dynamic. John was gradually taking over as lead vocalist and primary songwriter, while Tom found himself increasingly sidelined. Stu Cook moved from piano to bass guitar, and the lineup that would become Creedence Clearwater Revival was taking shape. But more than just musical roles were shifting. Power was consolidating, and resentment was beginning to brew. The breakthrough finally came in 1967 when Saul Zaentz purchased Fantasy Records and gave the band the freedom to choose their own name. They became Creedence Clearwater Revival, and in 1968, their swampy cover of Dale Hawkins' Susie Q became a regional hit. Then came the explosion, Proud Mary, Bad Moon Rising, Fortunate Son, a string of iconic hits that made them global superstars practically overnight. By 1970, CCR was a phenomenon. They had produced 14 consecutive top 10 singles and 5 consecutive top 10 albums in just 3 years. They had performed at Woodstock, commanded the respect of critics and fans alike, and achieved everything they had ever dreamed of as teenagers playing in El Cerrito. But success, as they were about to learn, can be the most dangerous thing of all. Despite their unparalleled success, something was deeply wrong inside Creedence Clearwater Revival. John Fogerty would later reflect on this period with a sense of painful irony, wondering aloud, "What are you guys so unhappy about?" Here they were, at the absolute peak of their success, with everything they had ever wanted, and yet the band was falling apart. John described the situation with a metaphor that would soon become the most famous line in their catalog. It was like the brightest blue, wonderful day, and it's raining. The sunshine of their fame was casting a long, dark shadow of internal strife. At the heart of the problem was John's absolute creative control. He wrote every song, produced every album, and dictated every part. While the rhythm section had some latitude, they were aspiring songwriters who felt completely sidelined. But the most painful source of conflict was the sibling rivalry between John and Tom Fogerty. Tom, who had been the band's original frontman, was watching his younger brother's genius eclipse everything he had ever hoped to achieve. The resentment was palpable and personal, expressed through what John would later describe as little jabs every now and then. The weight of Tom's animosity and jealousy created a toxic atmosphere that poisoned every interaction. Making matters worse was their contract with Fantasy Records and its owner, Saul Zaentz. John found himself locked in a devastating legal and personal war over his songwriting rights. fighting for control of the very songs that had made them famous. In what felt like the ultimate betrayal, the other band members, including his own brother Tom, chose to side with the label against him. John would later describe Tom's decision as a dagger in my heart, comparing it to a weird Patty Hearst syndrome, where the victim sides with their captors. The band's internal conflicts weren't just artistic disagreements. They were a catastrophic convergence of family betrayal, creative frustration, and business exploitation that was tearing apart not just the band, but a brotherhood. It was in this atmosphere of success and despair that John Fogerty sat down in late 1970 and wrote what would become their most enduring song. Have You Ever Seen the Rain emerged, as John later described it, unexpectedly from my subconscious during a period of deep melancholy.
Have you ever seen the rain?
Years later, in a 1993 interview with Rolling Stone, John was brutally honest about the song's true meaning. That song is really about the impending breakup of Creedence. The writing was clearly on the wall, and the imminent departure of his brother Tom weighed heavily on his mind and heart. The song's most famous line, "Have you ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day?" was the perfect metaphor for their impossible situation. The sunny day represented the brilliant peak of their career, the moment when they had finally arrived with chart-topping success beyond their wildest dreams. The rain was the personal and professional strife, the depression and unease that was casting a dark shadow over their greatest triumphs. By choosing this poignant meteorological metaphor rather than a direct statement about the band's problems, John created something extraordinary. He externalized his private pain into a universal image that millions could relate to. The sun shower, that strange weather phenomenon that seems to defy logic. This artistic choice allowed him to express his deepest sorrow while creating a song with mass appeal, ensuring its legacy would extend far beyond the specific circumstances that inspired it. The song was recorded in November 1970 during the sessions for their album Pendulum at Wally Heider Studios in San Francisco. Even the recording process reflected the band's fragmentation. Gone were the days when they would meticulously rehearse songs before entering the studio to record them quickly and efficiently. For Pendulum, the band took an unusually long month to learn the songs in the studio, a drawn-out process that highlighted their growing disconnection. John Fogerty, serving as the album's sole producer and arranger, used this extended studio time to expand the band's sonic palette beyond its traditional guitar-heavy sound. For the first time, he incorporated keyboards, a saxophone section, which he played entirely himself, and a Fender Rhodes electric piano. But this experimentation came with a telling detail. Rather than give the other members new parts to play, John chose to handle multiple instruments himself, a subtle but powerful sign of the growing distance and distrust within the group. Have You Ever Seen the Rain perfectly exemplified this new approach. The track was built on a simple, hymnal-like quality, driven by acoustic guitars and piano rather than the bombastic electric sound that had defined their earlier hits. John's plaintive vocal delivery, combined with a melancholic organ part that he played himself, gave the song a quiet, restrained beauty that was both accessible and deeply moving. The song's composition was equally elegant in its simplicity. Built in the key of C major, it naturally established a sense of brightness and optimism, mirroring the sunny days of the lyrics. But the introduction of an A minor chord in the chorus added a layer of melancholy, creating a perfect sonic representation of the sadness or rain threatening their bright future. Notably absent was the flashy guitar solo that had become a hallmark of John Fogerty's songwriting. This was a deliberate creative choice that prevented the song from becoming a generic rock anthem and kept the focus squarely on its emotional core. Every musical decision served the song's central metaphor, creating a perfect marriage of melody and meaning. The single for Have You Ever Seen the Rain was released in January 1971, and almost immediately, John's hidden prophecy began to come true. Tom Fogerty, unable to bear his sidelined role any longer and worn down by the ongoing legal battles, left the band shortly after the album's release. The song hadn't just documented the band's impending fracture, it had preceded it by mere weeks. Despite its somber origins, the song was a massive commercial success. It peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States and hit number 1 in Canada, becoming the band's 8th gold-selling single. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. The public completely misunderstood what the song was about. Given CCR's history of socially conscious hits like Fortunate Son, audiences widely interpreted Have You Ever Seen the Rain as a Vietnam War-era anthem. The rain was seen as a metaphor for bombs falling from the sky, or perhaps the turbulent, chaotic social climate of the early 70s. The song's timing, released during one of the most divisive periods in American history, made this interpretation seem obvious and natural. This widespread misinterpretation is both poignant and ironic. The very thing that made the song a universal hit was the fact that listeners could project their own struggles onto it, completely missing the deeply personal meaning that John had intended. A song about the collapse of a brotherhood became an anthem for an entire generation, grappling with war, protest, and social upheaval. The remaining trio of John, Stu, and Doug attempted to continue as CCR, recording one final album called Mardi Gras. It was a failed experiment in collaborative songwriting that was derided by critics and fans alike. The magic that had made them legends was inseparable from the tensions that had destroyed them. By 1972, Creedence Clearwater Revival was over, just as John's melancholy masterpiece had predicted. But Have You Ever Seen the Rain was just beginning its journey. Free from the specific context of CCR's breakup, the song took on a life of its own, becoming one of the most covered songs in popular music history. Its universal themes of struggle and disillusionment resonated across genres and generations. Country legends like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson found their own truth in its simple melody. Punk rockers like the Ramones and Joan Jett stripped it down to its emotional core. Pop stars like Rod Stewart brought it to new audiences. Each artist found something different in the song, proving its remarkable adaptability and enduring power. The song's presence in popular culture has been equally impressive. It has appeared in countless films and television shows, from prison football movies to biblical comedies, often used to underscore scenes of both sadness and hope. Its ability to work in so many different contexts speaks to the universality of its central metaphor. Everyone has experienced rain falling on what should have been a sunny day. John Fogerty's relationship with the song has evolved dramatically over the decades. Following years of legal battles with Fantasy Records that prevented him from performing his own songs, he eventually won back control of his catalog. More importantly, he found a way to heal from the personal wounds that had inspired the song in the first place. Today, John refuses to be sad when he performs Have You Ever Seen the Rain? The song that once represented the painful end of a brotherhood now reminds him of his daughter Kelsey and rainbows. This transformation from painful memoir to symbol of hope provides a powerful conclusion to the song's emotional journey. The genius of Have You Ever Seen the Rain lies not just in its beautiful simplicity, but in its ability to mean different things to different people at different times. What began as John Fogerty's melancholy farewell to his band became an anti-war anthem for a generation, a timeless standard for countless artists, and, ultimately, a symbol of personal healing and redemption. In many ways, Have You Ever Seen the Rain represents everything that made Creedence Clearwater Revival special. It was born from the same tensions that created their greatest music. John's artistic genius conflicting with the democratic ideals of a band, personal relationships strained by professional success, and the bitter irony of achieving everything you've dreamed of, only to discover it's not enough. Perhaps most remarkably, John Fogerty has found a way to reclaim not just his songs, but their meaning. His recent re-recording of CCR classics and his acquisition of the majority publishing rights to his catalog represent a final victory over the forces that once seemed insurmountable. The artist who once sang about rain falling on sunny days has finally found his rainbow. The legal battles are over. The personal wounds have healed. Tom Fogerty, who died in 1990, has been forgiven. And Have You Ever Seen the Rain continues to play on radios around the world, carrying its message of resilience and hope to new generations who will undoubtedly find their own meaning in its timeless melody. The song that documented the end of Creedence Clearwater Revival became their most enduring gift to the world. It proved that sometimes our greatest art comes not from our triumphs, but from our failures. Not from our happiness, but from our heartbreak. Not from our certainty, but from those moments when we're brave enough to ask the most honest questions about our own lives. Have You Ever Seen the Rain stands as one of the most perfect examples of how personal pain can be transformed into universal art. What's your favorite CCR song or story? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more music documentaries.